Hello and welcome to Ticket Manager's All Access interview series, engaging leaders from across the sports marketing spectrum to identify and explore critical issues in the business of sports, entertainment, sponsorship, activation, ticketing, hospitality, and yes, even more than that. I'm your host, Jim Andrews. Joining me on this episode is David Parrow, Head of Global Sponsorships for MoneyGram International. Now, while this is a new role, David has been working with MoneyGram for a while now, starting as a consultant before recently jumping on board full-time. I'm sure many of you know David, and you know he had his own consultancy, Deep Alliance, for I think about 20 years or so. And he and I go back even further than that, first becoming acquainted in Chicago, David, when you were at Frankel, and of course, when you were director of U.S. Sports Alliances for McDonald's. So it's great to see you, and thanks so much for joining us.
Jim, it's so great to be able to visit with you in this format. Thank you for having me on the show. And, now that we're, both big podcasters, I figure we have a lot to talk about, even more than back in the old days.
Yeah, exactly. What I was just about to say, I'm more intimidated having you as a guest than I usually am, because you host a great podcast yourself, along with Tim McGee, the Wait What Sports Biz Chat with DP and McGee. So yeah, you know what it's like on both sides of this microphone. So hopefully you'll remember that and be kind during.
Well, thanks for that little plug, and
sure.
we will certainly reciprocate that, my friend.
Excellent. So yeah, let's talk about MoneyGram, because when the announcement was made back in the fall in October that MoneyGram was going to be the title sponsor of the Haas Formula One team, I immediately thought, boy, that's going 0 to 60, or in this case 0 to 200 if we're talking about F1, pretty quickly, because MoneyGram. For me, I know that there's kind of a hometown partnership based in Dallas with Dallas FC, the MLS team there, but I didn't really consider MoneyGram as a big time sponsor, if that's fair to say. But all of a sudden that you don't get much bigger than entitling an F1 team. So can you kind of take us back and give us the backstory on that?
Right. I think part of why we feel so strongly that it makes sense is exactly what you just said. Because we're not a company that has just thrown around sponsorship dollars or tried to acquire everything. Something was going to have to be right, and it was going to have to be at the right time, and that's what happened here. Mm-hmm. You're right. There's a great partnership with FC Dallas, which is more of a hometown play, but there's a great relationship with the ownership group there as well, and and that's been something that's been a positive. But this was an opportunity that, the right opportunity and the right time met together, and the right team to move this thing forward. Obviously your listeners know of the growing popularity of Formula One around the world, and certainly here in the United States, driven somewhat by the Drive to Survive phenomenon, of course. But it wasn't as though there was a years-long effort necessarily to go out and say, we need a sponsorship. My philosophy, and you may share this, is never that, getting a sponsorship is never an actual objective of sponsorship. Totally. It's more, what can we do? And the company was going through a transformation. And, one of my big tenets of sponsorship is that it can do and should do a couple things. And one of those is really define a brand or enhance a brand personality, image, or just really define what it's all about. And we're changing. We're becoming much more of a fintech-based company. We have approaching 50% of our transactions now, rather than the retail version of the transaction, are being made digitally, and we want that to grow. We feel we're the fastest way to move money around the world, and Formula One is certainly the sport that speaks to speed and innovation, I think, really well. But it certainly goes beyond that, because there's multiple ways to do a sponsorship, of course, with Formula One, whether it's a sanctioning body deal or a minor deal. We felt if we were going to make a statement and really say, this is what the new MoneyGram is all about, build a stronger global presence, be able to communicate those things, and also explain things like we're a relatable company, we had to pick the right team, and we had to go at that title level, or it wouldn't have made sense. Now, does that mean that we may not be doing any other sponsorships? Yes. We'll see if there are other things that make sense for us to pursue. Certainly other sports have a global vibe to them, but the beautiful thing about F1, as with other racing series, and we've always talked about that if you've been in sponsorship with racing, is that the field all competes together on the same day. And you're there on a global basis, and every eye that's following that sport is on you.
I think it's really interesting that you mentioned that you wouldn't have taken a lower position. You needed the title. Can you talk about why that was important, necessary?
I wouldn't say that. I would say it just made more sense to do that, because then we are a part of the team. We're the MoneyGram Haas F1 team.
Right.
And while there were some other opportunities being looked at that weren't necessarily titles, the fit with being able to partner and say we're at the same level as the team really meant something to us. It was a way to rally our entire system around supporting it. It was key. It was key to our messaging. Listen, there are other teams on the grid that are huge in their following. We know this, and with the digital reach that F1 is getting right now, and how successful Liberty Media and F1 have been at building that engagement with fans, I mean, it's just really, really massive. So we just felt if we were going to be in it, and we had the opportunity with this particular team to make it all work, where we could get that level of collaboration. And it really has been that. It has been absolutely a blast working with this team. Their social people are fantastic. The design people that we collaborated with on the logo and the car have been just tremendous to work with. So it really does feel like it's that type of partnership, rather than just something that we're slapping our name on and hoping that we reap the benefits.
So I love origin stories of partnerships and how they came about. So how long were you working with MoneyGram as a consultant and helping them try to figure out this whole sports marketing puzzle?
Not really all that long. I came on in late summer of last year. The deal was announced. The deal was announced in October at COTA in Austin on October 20th, a very special day for all of us. And I had been working several months in advance of that with a team that was somewhat in place, a fantastic internal team of people that were just so fired up to make this thing work. And I just embedded with them, which is the way I did my business at Deep Alliance in the last several years of it, where I just became extensions of management teams usually. And that was the case here. And it was absolutely fantastic. But there had been discussions that opened up with the team prior to that. Somebody had reached out to me that had been consulting with them, that I had worked with back in the day when I was at McDonald's. And I won't go into all the details there, but said, listen, I think you can provide some help with this team, and I'd like you to meet with Greg Hall, who's the CMO. I did, and we hit it off. And then I got a chance to start meeting the rest of the team, and felt so amazed at the energy and the passion and the interest that they were bringing to this. And it was an absolutely unbelievable consulting project. And then on race day, after the race, and when we had announced that in 2023 we were going to become the title of the MoneyGram Haas F1 team, I sat with Greg and we discussed the possibility of coming on, and a month or so later, that's where I landed.
Excellent. So, and I'll save a question till later about how that's gone, because it's an intriguing question to go back into the corporate world. I would imagine, at least I think it's interesting. But staying on MoneyGram for a while, obviously, as you mentioned, it's a global company that is going through a transformation. But I'm wondering, it's also a U.S. based company, right? So it was. You talked about the growing popularity, and I met a friend's 17-year-old daughter last week, who is the biggest F1 fan I have ever met in my life. And I couldn't believe, I cannot believe I'm having a conversation with a 17-year-old about Formula One, and she knows more about it than I do. It's amazing what's gone on in the growth of popularity there. And obviously we're going to have 3 races in 2023 here in the States. How big a factor was that, or was it a factor?
It certainly was a factor, and it was somewhat of a factor that that Haas, who entered the sport in 2016, is U.S. based, but it's not the factor, and it's not an overriding factor. I mean, look at our drivers. We have Kevin Magnussen, who's from Denmark, and we have Nico Hülkenberg, who's from Germany. Gunther Steiner, our team principal, and maybe one of the most charismatic people I've ever been around in a odd way and a bizarre way, but a wonderfully endearing way. He is American now. He lives near the Kannapolis headquarters of the company, but obviously has European roots. So it was a bit of a factor, but we serve over 200 countries around the world. And while US is a huge market for us in terms of where money is being sent from, it's not the only market. Greg Hall likes to say every race is a home race for us. And I believe that to be true. We have the potential to go in and do programs. Now, there's some markets where we have a stronger digital presence under the MoneyGram brand, and other markets where we do more partnerships with other companies where we provide certain services for them, and they're the face of the brand. So it's different around the world. But we have, and it's funny, because my background, a lot of people know me for being at McDonald's. We have over 400,000 points of presence around the world, which actually exceeds some of those QSR big QSR chains combined. And that's still a part of the business, and it's the history of the business where people can go in to a kiosk at a store, convenience store, or retailer, and send money cross-border, have it exchanged and have it appear very fast to the people that they care about in another country. And as we move more digitally, obviously we'll be looking to expand that brand. And we believe that the partnership with F1 will help us build that presence where it becomes acceptable when we do launch more MoneyGram online or digital markets for the brand.
Is there a specific target audience? You're going for younger folks?
I mean, listen, with the digital product, obviously you're always looking a bit younger. We know that the F1 audience is just to your point that you just made, is almost surprisingly young, and I think in a positive way. And they tend to be people that, from a fintech standpoint, are a lot more comfortable with doing their banking-related financial transactions online or on their phone. So that is absolutely a direction that we're looking to push. But it's also people that have a little more of a global feel and certainly want to live their life maybe a little more borderless when it comes to their contacts with other people from around the world and their need to send money to other places around the world.
You mentioned, briefly kind of the team that you joined, but essentially, you're creating the sponsorship program from scratch, and so I'm interested in kind of organizationally. Obviously you've been brought in-house, but are you building an internal team? How do you interface that? As you say, you're in 200 countries. That's and the Formula One races are in however many they're in. Just how are you going to manage that? That kind of map, if you will, looking at a lot of agency partners. Just take us a little bit behind the scenes in terms of how you're putting this all together.
So I'm the head of global sponsorships, which means I oversee the sponsorship relationship and help work within a team that is responsible for other line functions, if you will, in terms of delivering the marketing. So I'm not an island. The marketing of the program doesn't fall necessarily in the sponsorships group or just on me. And that's what I was talking about when I jumped on. We have a global head of brand that's very involved in this. And we're shifting our brand image and doing it along with F1. So you'll see a lot of F1 in that, but F1 is not our brand. MoneyGram Haas F1 team is not our brand. MoneyGram's our brand, but you'll see some things move into that, and we use some things interestingly interchangeably. We have a head of comms that I work with extremely closely on how we're going to message, where we're going to message, what are the projects that are important for us to establish the identity of what this team is and what our sponsorship is about. We have a lead on social media that absolutely is engaged in working with the race team social group to make sure that we're taking advantage of everything and not breaking F1 rules, by the way, in terms of what can be shown from the paddock as far as video goes. We have an admin person, an ops person, marketing ops person that helps make sure that the assets that we need are able to put in place. And we have a network of regional leads and regional marketing people that are super excited about getting involved. So when we go to Australia or we go to the UK or we go to Barcelona, we have programs that we work with them on developing based on what's important to them. And we have the basic tools that we have. So we're really excited about things that we're going to be able to do locally on the ground in our key markets, our key MGO markets, the MoneyGram online markets, but also what we're able to do on a broader basis, because we have millions of people that are using our app on a regular basis. So what are the things that we're going to be able to drive into that in terms of content, in terms of contests and so forth. So we're going to hit it on a couple different fronts, and are super excited. I mean, there's a lot of work in front of us, but I feel really fortunate that the people that are in place that have responsibility for marketing functions anyway, and because of the importance of this relationship, are working with me, to form this kind of circle around this property and make sure that we're maximizing the value from it.
As you and I are recording this, the season hasn't even gotten underway. We're getting close to the kickoff of the F1 season. So this is still, obviously a work in progress, pretty new. But do you have any specific kind of activation plans in place for how you're going to tell the MoneyGram story through F1? You kind of hinted at some of the content pieces and things like that, but anything more specific that you're ready to talk about?
Yeah, no. But I will tell you the strategy with which we're going to pursue. It's really, four parts to it, and one is this concept of unique engagement, things that we can bring to people. And this isn't necessarily a unique piece of strategy. You and I have both looked at this as if you're sponsoring a property, what can you bring to your customer that other people can't, that makes it unique. So we're gonna lean definitely into that and make sure, not just from the team but from other sources, that we're creating some unique content and unique engagement pieces. So we are looking at an ongoing, probably US-based only first year concept that involves people following the series and being able to access certain things in conjunction with the app. We are going to look to, in key markets, on-site activation. That could be, in concert with some media partnerships that helps us expand a little bit of what we're trying to do, but have a physical presence, but a physical presence that isn't building a museum to ourselves and expecting people to come see it, right, but more engages with people in ways that they would normally go about their business. We were very excited about what we did, for instance, in Austin, which we felt was a unique application. And in that case, I worked with a group called Boom Ventures, which is a newer activation agency, but with some great pedigree. And we took over a coffee shop as part of the coffee culture of Austin. So I'm not saying we're going to repeat that in any other market, but the idea is to try to be as local as we can in those markets, but do things in ways that absolutely can be amplified on not just a country or region basis, but possibly globally through PR and through social as well. So we have to be efficient. We're not budgeted as some of the bigger sponsors. So everything we do has to be smart. We have to be looking at it in terms of, can it help us achieve what we want to achieve and do so in an efficient way? And that it not only reaches those people that we're touching live in person and drawing them into our app, but has the ability to help us fulfill our engagement goals that we have, which are very, very aggressive for this. We're going to take an always-on approach to the partnership, meaning that there's always going to be something going on in one way or another, what we do, whether there's a race weekend or not. And then the last piece is in those markets where we don't have a branded presence, is how can we bring partners that we're doing business with in. So, and I won't go into all the details, but even in the markets to kick off the season in the Middle East, in Bahrain first, and then in Saudi Arabia, we're looking to do some work with some partners. I mean, we're going to have the only show car at the Beyond Money F1 fan zone in Bahrain that's actually run by the Bahrain International Circuit. And it's exciting because we have one hell of a cool new car design that we're super excited about, and the fans seem to be as well.
I've seen the pictures. The car looks.
Thank you.
Is beyond bringing in those partners that you say that you kind of work with, Formula One and the paddock. I mean, it's such a great client entertainment, hospitality area for those kinds of activities. Will you incorporate that kind of B2B element into?
There will be a degree of B2B in certain markets, including these markets, where we'll look at paddock club tickets and so forth that our regional people can do entertaining, or we can give to them to use as they want based on the business that we're doing with them. But that's an interesting point that you say, because even Drive to Survive, in my personal opinion, spends too much time in the paddock. Um, and that's the image of it, and that's fine. The image of F1 is one of super upscale, and it is. It's an expensive sport to be involved in. It's an expensive sport to go to. I'm sure you've seen the pricing that Vegas is putting on this first year of event, and that for that November inaugural event in Vegas. Trust me, I don't like looking at those numbers because we got to get some of those
exactly
tickets. But our goal isn't necessarily to focus on that. We're much more of a B2C company. We're much more of a B2C company, way more. And those are the fans that we want to both bring into F1 through our team and our partnership. And we're looking to be the more relatable, accessible team. And that goes back to what I was saying about the race team. If you follow the series or you follow the sport, our team principal and our drivers and the story lines behind this team, it's a pretty relatable group of people, and we like that because we feel we're that same type of group. We're going to hustle our ass off. We're gonna try to work hard. We're very human in our dealings with people and relatable. I mean, the MoneyGram Haas F1 team is not the largest team, and Gunther will say that all day. But that's part of the beauty of it and how they work together, and why it's so much fun to be a part of them. And the vibe right now is really great. I mean, the popularity that that Gunther has, the fame that he has captured, and if you talk to him, he'll go, "I have no idea why it is. It's just me being me." But people get that, and they've had some hard luck stories with two sponsors in the past. Hopefully we're bringing some great stability and enthusiasm and excitement. We're not here to dictate who the drivers should be or get involved in that side of the business. We trust the organization to do that, and we trust Gunther to do that. Our job is to support them on that side and get out and market it, hopefully bring some fans to that, but at the same time, get some people much more interested in what MoneyGram is all about.
You're right. We talk about F1 and the lifestyle and the imagery and everything's aspirational, and then you've got on the track, you've got these major teams and the glitz and the glamour and the power and legacy that goes behind them. But there's room for an underdog story, right? That's kind of been missing in my perspective. So people want to root for an underdog, right? So
last year, after MoneyGram announced his partnership, mind you, at COTA, Kevin Magnussen finished in the points at the U.S. Grand Prix, and then 2 races later in Brazil, he won the pole. Unprecedented,
right?
And it was voted in one panel as the best moment of the year. Now think about that.
Yeah,
now Max wins the second championship. There's all the drama between the Ferraris, Red Bull, and Mercedes, and Kevin Magnussen winning a pole in Brazil was that moment. And there was no doubt that was a feel-good moment, not just for this particular race team, but I think for the entire paddock, and I think the sport. And beyond that, if you look at what happens at Monza, for instance, after a race, and that scene where everybody, most of them waving Ferrari flags coming down that stretch, those are fans that are there spending their hard-earned money to be part of this exciting experience. Right. They don't know, for the most part, they're not people that are going to be hanging out in the paddock club or walking the paddock. If you go and sit in the grandstands, as I did, and I did this back when I was at McDonald's, every race I sat in the grandstand at a NASCAR race. It was as good of a race fan vibe as I've ever seen anywhere. And it wasn't the crowd that I think, as much as Drive to Survive is awesome, by the way, and I really like what it's done for the sport, sure. It doesn't necessarily tell that story all the way, I don't think, because the fans are the fans, and they're great sports fans, and they're great racing fans, and they come from all walks of life to sit in the grandstand and watch this event that spans 3 miles around a circuit, and you can't even really see all of it. I will say this: the first turn at COTA, which comes up the hill and then turns, it's about one of the coolest spots to watch a race. You want to watch a race.
David, I know you're a busy guy. I don't want to take too much of your time, but I do have 2 other questions I want to make sure to ask you. And you touched on this a little bit. You mentioned some engagement goals. So just overall, I ask this of every sponsor I have on here because I'm always interested in evaluation and measurement. What's success going to look like for the end of the season when you're looking back? How are you going to say, hey, this was this was the right thing to do. We're happy we made this investment in Formula
Right.
One.
There are a couple of things from an overall marketing standpoint we are looking at very, very closely, and that is going to be, are we absolutely growing our brand recognition and our preference amongst a much stronger, not stronger in terms of the companies, but more competition on a digital basis than had been there just several years ago. So as we're making that transformation, we have new competitors that we're making sure that we benchmark against and a look at what our growth is. And of course, then the actual engagement with the brand through things like social and bringing them into the app. So, we're definitely going to be looking like, are we able to bring people into our ecosystem, and are we growing that in the direction that's positive? So, I mean, on a very general basis, we expect and hope that we're able to showcase our brand, and we're going to be able to look at that type of engagement by people coming into the app, but also engaging with us in the various other channels that we have. And those goals will obviously shift as we move through the life cycle of that partnership.
I mentioned this before. I'm intrigued by the idea of a lot of people in our generation are leaving the corporate world and hanging out the shingle and becoming consultants after long careers. You did that earlier on than a lot of us, but now you're going back to a full-time corporate role. And I'm just curious as to how's that transition been?
Well, it's been great. And you are right, because it is interesting. I mean, I had 2 stints with Deep Alliance wrapped around my 2 years at Van Wagner.
Yeah.
And those were amazing years. I was always proud not only of the company, but of the clients we kept and worked with. So it is a change. There's no doubt about it. But the opportunity and the time, just like I said with the sponsorship, really just seemed to work. But none of it would have mattered. So as great as it's like, wow, F1, it's at a cool time for F1 and it's exciting. And, I could be, in charge of managing that promotion for this great company that has been around a long time and is going through this great change. And that would be a fun part of it. But if it hadn't been for the experience that I had working with this team around the Austin launch, it would have been a great consulting project. That was the thing that made me so excited about it and makes me excited about it every day. I mean, because of the time zones we're dealing with right now, it's been pretty unbelievable the last couple months as we're preparing for the season. And it's tough, but everybody's so passionate and everybody just really wants to make a difference and everybody's putting their best foot forward. That to me was the thing that really made it absolutely the right decision. So I couldn't be happier about being with this team of people, with the management of the company, and where I feel we have an opportunity to go.
Yeah, well, that's terrific. I'm happy for you and wish you all the best. You and everybody there with this inaugural season. I'm saving my pennies, so hopefully I'll be able to see you in action out in Vegas.
Awesome.
But yeah, thanks again, David, for being with us. Really enjoyed it, and maybe we'll get to do it again sometime.
Sounds good, Jim. Thanks so much for having me.
All right. And on behalf of Ticket Manager, thank all of you for watching and listening. And please join us again for the next episode in the All Access interview series.